First of all, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our new attendees joining us today for the first time, and I'd like to welcome back our growing community of regulars who've been showing up to all our webinars. I'll just give you a very brief intro into everybody on the webinar today. My name's Jane Young. I'm with Smartway 2, and my background lies in all things digital, from shaping digital marketing strategies for brands and agencies through to running digital transformation projects and helping organisations set visions and roadmaps for the future. I also do a lot of writing and speaking about all things future of work. And I'm here today with our CEO, John Anderson, who brings almost 4 decades of experience to the table in growing workplace technology companies, including many successful acquisitions and exits. John makes regular appearances as a seasoned speaker at industry events, as well as being published in many journals. And we also have Martin Hiles with us today, the founder of Smartway 2. Martin has a strong track record of launching, growing and exiting companies in this space as well. And I challenge you to find a question around automated workplace scheduling that Martin cannot answer in our Q&A today, as he has such broad and deep experience in this field. So without further ado, let's get stuck into today's topic, preparing for the adaptive workplace. As we speak, vaccines are being administered to people all around the world. So finally, we're beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. But obviously, we're by no means out of the woods yet. And people like all of you here today, people who are responsible in some way for the workplace and the employee experience, are facing enormous challenges in 2021. Not only are we tasked with protecting our colleagues' safety and well-being, but we also need to look beyond the short term to prepare our workplaces for a fundamentally different way of working. In fact, this time that we're living through right now is a watershed, a chance to reinvent the way people experience work. Because the future of work isn't just some place that we're all going to be forced to go to one of these days. It's a place that doesn't yet exist, that all of us have the responsibility to create. And creating this better future is urgent because in truth, most of our workplaces are not currently fit for purpose. The reason I say that is because the expectations and behaviours of the workforce are evolving rapidly. So in response, our workplaces must adapt. That's why we're here today to discuss how to prepare for the adaptive workplace, a workplace that can evolve alongside society, culture, the economy, and all of the other systems that we're part of. So in terms of an agenda, we're going to talk about the crisis in productivity that most organisations are facing today. Then we'll look at the state of remote working and how we can apply what we've learned over the past year to create a transformative workplace strategy. And we'll touch on some best practices that organisations are implementing now in order to rise to the challenges of 2021 and beyond. Now, I just mentioned a productivity crisis there, and some of you might be thinking that we're hearing all kinds of success stories about productivity during the pandemic, that organisations have been flinging barriers aside and adopting digitisation, making operational improvements, using automation to cut through complexity, and that is all absolutely true. You may also have heard some success stories around remote working. However, in truth, only a small minority of organisations have managed to maintain or modestly improve productivity during the pandemic, while the vast majority have seen a worrying decline in productivity. Researchers at Bain & Company studied productivity in organisations before and during the pandemic. And they discovered a productivity gap between a small percentage of top-performing organisations and all the rest, a gap that has been widening steadily throughout the pandemic. They identified 3 key productivity factors that determine whether your organisation is equipped to thrive during challenging times like these. The first factor is time, the amount of time that employees can dedicate to productive work each day without distractions, without excessive email, without unnecessary meetings or bureaucratic processes getting in the way. The second is talent, the level of talent that each individual brings to their job, and importantly, how that talent is deployed, teamed, and led. And the third is energy, the discretionary amount of energy that people are willing to invest in their work and dedicate to the success of the organisation. So the question is, what should you be focusing on and implementing today in order to create an adaptive workplace that solves these challenges and therefore puts your organisation at a competitive advantage? What we're really talking about is crafting an employee experience. Because as I'm sure many of you are well aware, an engaged employee is 45% more productive than a merely satisfied employee. And an inspired employee who feels a profound connection to their work and or the organization is 55% more productive than an engaged employee. So more than twice as productive as a merely satisfied worker. So, whether you're in facilities, HR, IT, operations, the role you play in the design and delivery of a continuously improving and evolving experience has a powerful knock on effect on the fundamentals of your organization, the quality of products and services you can deliver to customers, the bottom line. Now, to help inform your imminent moves, let's think about these three productivity factors: time, talent, and energy through the lens of remote working. Now, if you were to ask people before the pandemic whether they'd like to have more flexibility and the option of working from home, of course, everyone would have said, yes, sounds great. And all the research supports this. But it turns out that when forced to work from home 100% of the time, cracks begin to show. Research consistently shows that the vast majority of people are struggling and crave more time in the office. If you attended our previous webinars, you'll have seen some of the results from our own survey of senior executives that showed that only 6% of people want to work from home 100% of the time, while just 2% want to work from the office all the time, and the overwhelming majority, 92%, want to split their time between home and the office. This reflects countless studies and surveys that consistently show people want to spend 2, 3, 4 days a week in the office. Why? Because they miss collaborating with colleagues. They miss the spontaneous idea sharing that occurs in the office. And they really miss social contact. And some people feel more productive in the office. They feel their day is more structured. Maybe some people have young children at home, or a sick relative, or noisy housemates, or a poor internet connection, or they may be struggling with mental health issues. And that's before we even get on to their personality type, extrovert or introvert, their relationship with their manager, the type of work they're doing, and the sort of environment that's suitable for that work. The point is, there are endless nuances to every individual's personal circumstances that impact the productivity factors: time, talent, and energy. And this creates high levels of complexity that cannot be managed manually, nor with a top-down, broad brush approach. That's why simply splitting people into shifts and buckets and telling them when they can and can't access the office may be a good temporary solution for some. But that completely ignores the question of whether it's optimal for the individual, for their team, and for the organization. Instead, what we need is to give people autonomy. That way, we leave it to the individual to self-optimize, to choose the time, place, and approach to the task at hand that suits them best. And I'd argue that the most talented in-demand workers expect nothing less than complete autonomy and trust. So hybrid working, a personalized mix of home and in-office working, is our new reality. And when people do come into the office, they're coming in for a reason. They're coming in to fulfill a need. They want a place where they can concentrate and focus on deep work without distractions and interruptions. Or perhaps they want to see their friends at work and nurture those personal relationships that are important to them. Or maybe they want the opportunity to bump into people they don't know so well for those spontaneous conversations that can spark fresh thinking. Maybe they want to collaborate more effectively, to access certain equipment, to learn from more experienced colleagues. And this goes to the very heart of what the workplace is for. Its very purpose. If we can work wherever we like, why come to the office at all? To sum it up, the purpose of the modern office is to fulfill our need for collaboration, socializing, learning, and deep work. How many of us can honestly say that our offices are fulfilling that purpose to their full potential today? That's why we need to prepare for the adaptive workplace, so that the form and function of our offices and the way we interact with them can adapt in line with the expectations of talented employees and deliver against business objectives. So let's take a look at these objectives from a workplace strategy perspective. Not every organization is the same, of course, but there are common goals that I'm confident we're all striving for. Namely, measurable improvements in safety and well-being, in performance and productivity, in innovation and communications, in cost savings and efficiencies, in sustainability and carbon footprint, and talent attraction and retention. To achieve these objectives, let's take a brief look at some best practices that leading organisations are adopting to drive the desired outcomes. At a basic level, COVID safety is a must, is a given. And beyond this, many workplaces will maintain more stringent health and safety protocols to reduce bouts of illness amongst their staff. If you've seen our previous webinars, we've talked extensively about how to automate COVID safety in your workplace. It all hinges on having your people book whatever facilities they need in advance, so desks, rooms, parking spaces, equipment, and so on, so that demand is driven bottom up. For example, when someone books a desk in SmartWay 2, all other desks within a specified radius are taken out of service. And when they vacate that desk, nobody else can book it for, say, 48 hours or until a cleaner releases it to allow for sanitation. Then there's touchless check-in, not just checking into the building so you can manage capacity, but checking into your desk, your meeting room, and so on. And all of this data on who's sitting where and using what when enables contact tracing. So in the event that someone falls ill, you can instantly run a report to identify at-risk colleagues and their individual risk levels. You can also automate the freeing up of extra space when you need it. For example, you might find that conference rooms are sitting empty while you're struggling for desk space. So you can repurpose the conference rooms as additional workstations. Or say the cafeteria fills up quickly due to social distancing. You can automatically open up an overspill area where people can safely sit and eat their lunch. We also have a feature set around smart space recovery that combats the problem of no-shows. Before COVID-19, this was a big deal because in most offices, 30 to 50% of meeting space was going to waste because people failed to show up once they've booked it, costing a fortune. But now we're amidst the pandemic, it's more about making sure that we make the most of our reduced capacity. So say if someone books a desk, then doesn't show up and check in, that desk can automatically be freed up for someone else to use. And we can even send a notification to a colleague who may have been hoping to use that desk to tell them that it's now become available and ask them if they want to book it. There's also the opportunity to perform health checks when someone goes to book their desk so that they can certify that they're well and don't have any symptoms, such as a fever. So simply by giving people tools to book what they need ahead of time, you've cut through the complexity of catering to individual circumstances via a self-service approach to accessing the office and everything in it. And you've protected people while improving their experience, contributing to all the objectives we talked about. Meanwhile, importantly, you've put the means in place to gather valuable data around space utilisation and more. And the beauty of automation is also compliance. Simply telling people what to do and then relying on them to diligently continue doing it, regardless of COVID fatigue and human fallibility, is high risk. Whereas baking safety procedures into your tools means people naturally do the right thing. Simply by using the tool, they naturally comply with social distancing, improved sanitation, and so on. But automation on its own isn't sufficient if it's inflexible. We're shooting for an adaptive workplace here, so we need adaptive tools, i.e. cloud-based, easy to change, easy to update. Because rules and policies will keep changing, priorities change, spaces and floor plans, and all the rules for who can and can't book what, where, when, all of that is subject to change. For that reason, we built a rules engine in SmartWay 2 that makes it easy to customize workflows and adapt to whatever the future brings. So that covers the foundational layer of automation that you need in terms of automating access to the workplace and everything in it. And as I mentioned, that gives you valuable data on who's using what and when. And this data is crucial to creating an adaptive workplace because without it, you'll have no idea what's working and what isn't. So it's almost impossible to optimize the employee experience to its full potential. And this optimization is ongoing because our offices need to compete with alternatives, including our homes. They must give employees a return on their investment in the commute, for one thing, by providing the ideal environment for collaboration, socializing, learning, and deep work, so that we dial up those productivity levers of time, talent, and energy to achieve our objectives. Another important point on workplace data is that it can help tell a story. If you can marry utilization data with a compelling story and narrative, then now is the time for you to be able to get buy-in for fairly major change. So if you're wondering how you can have an impact, how you can fulfill your potential as a leader in facilities, HR, whatever your particular area, there has never been a better time to put your ding in the universe. So we've talked about automating access to the workplace and its facilities and relying on utilisation data to adapt the types of spaces and facilities you offer to improve employee experience. But let's get a bit more specific about those types of spaces and facilities. Firstly, open plan, densely packed layouts were seldom fulfilling their objective of boosting collaboration before the pandemic, and clearly they won't be appropriate anytime soon. Instead, we're going to see a rise in activity-based working, with areas being designed for collaboration, socialising, learning and deep work, unsurprisingly. We're seeing a huge shift towards hot desking and hoteling, combined with stringent sanitation procedures and communication so that people feel confident in using unassigned seating. And this is really shifting the mindset in the office from my desk to our space. And many organisations were adopting neighbourhoods before the pandemic, a trend that's likely to rise sharply. So we lay out certain areas of the office for access by certain groups of people, whether a department, a project team, a group of essential workers. And this preserves a sense of community, collaboration, togetherness, alongside the benefits of unassigned seating. For any of you who aren't SmartWay 2 customers, feel free to reach out to me and we can arrange a demo to show you how to set up office neighbourhoods and, of course, automate access to them and measure utilisation alongside that as well. We're going to see a wider adoption of focus booths as well, and other one-person workstations and spaces where people can tune out the outside world and really concentrate on tricky tasks, which is also an antidote to the always-on culture, full of distractions from our phones, from email notifications, that have eroded our ability to focus for extended periods of time. I'd urge you to Google the eudaimonia machine for a bit of inspiration. It's an office space concept by a Chicago-based architect, which is designed to elicit the best work we're capable of. And that was framed around Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, meaning the epitome of human capability. So in essence, it's an answer to the challenges of the open plan office. So what else are organisations doing? Well, the senior VP at BMW, he said offices need to focus more on fast social interaction than in the past. And we'll experience more event types of activities in the office. So the office has to act more like a theatre or convention centre, with shorter lead times to switch between different office modes depending on our needs. For example, collaboration or meeting mode or focused work. And he believes the greatest purpose of the new office is coming together in the workplace to socialise and collaborate. Now, don't forget that meetings can satisfy both our social and collaborative needs, helping us form friendships at work. Now, 70% of employees say friends at work is the most crucial element to a happy working life. So on that front, we're seeing organisations become more aware that they're having too many unproductive meetings and perhaps not enough truly productive, collaborative, game-changing and social meetings. According to Doodle's 2019 State of Meetings report, the cost of badly organised meetings is something like $399 billion in the US and $58 billion in the UK, which totals almost $500 billion from just two countries. So it's safe to say that there is no such thing as a free meeting. And bad meetings are a key cause of burnout, which costs up to $190 billion a year in healthcare spending in the US alone. Yet the true cost is much higher. According to Gallup, 23% of employees report feeling burnout at work very often or always, which accounts for 20 to 50% of staff turnover. And burnout has been rife amongst people working from home, spending too much time on video calls that aren't serving their need for learning and collaboration or socialising or deep work. So we're seeing organisations look carefully at their approach to meetings and empowering employees to improve their meeting quality. I can share an article that I put together with lots of research on this and some ways to boost meeting productivity when I email you the recording of this webinar. Now, closely related to burnout is stress caused by lack of managerial support, lack of recognition, financial stress, job insecurity, hence the surge in concern around mental health during the pandemic. Now, Adobe, one of the few organisations that haven't seen a dip in productivity over the year, issued a no layoff pledge early on. Obviously, not every organisation has been in the position to do that. But for those who can, it's a great example of relieving employees of the burden of job insecurity that can erode performance and well-being and create anxiety. Now, they've done lots of great things, actually. They launched a weekly video series called Take 5 to help employees keep up with important COVID-19 and business updates, along with tips from fellow employees, including fun things. For example, chefs from their cafeteria would share recipe ideas. They ran regular pulse surveys, and they took action off the back of them as well. For instance, they decided to give all employees an extra day off, the third Friday of each month, to unplug and recharge. The combination of these efforts enabled them to tap into the discretionary energy of employees throughout the pandemic. And alongside all this good stuff, many leading organisations are redesigning less obvious elements of the employee experience to align with shifting expectations. Twitter has been encouraging more informal and more frequent conversations between managers and employees. Meanwhile, Facebook scrapped reviews in 2021, and they're looking at fundamental changes to the goals and metrics against which people are judged and measured. Meanwhile, self-management is becoming increasingly commonplace. For instance, Walmart tried out a new structure at Sam's Club and Walmart neighborhood markets that involved cross-training teams and making them responsible for managing stock and keeping shelves looking good. Their COO, Dakota Smith, said Walmart supercenters will be rolling out a similar structure, and he expects productivity and employee experience to benefit. And he said this move speaks to the importance of innovation for both customers and employees and the symbiotic nature of customer experience and employee experience. We're also seeing widespread adoption of design thinking methodologies and mindsets applied to HR, facilities, and all things workplace and employee experience. For example, Deloitte used design thinking to transform HR from a process developer to an experience architect. They use it to redesign the physical work environment, to optimize the digital workspace, to change how managers use their time, to reimagine the entire process of hiring, training, engaging, and evaluating employees. So the way I'd sum up best practice in 21 is this. All of those great innovations, fresh ways of doing things that empower employees, that put your people at the heart of everything you do, are shifting from the fringes to the mainstream, from the innovative few to the masses. And these initiatives and approaches blur the lines between facilities, HR, IT operations, requiring the formation of cross-functional task forces. Those who don't adapt will inevitably be left behind. Because as organizations rush to embrace digitization, those automated systems increase the clock speed with which they can operate, which leads to more digitization in a compounding loop of acceleration. So to wrap up, let's take it right back to the basics of creating an adaptive workplace in 2021. Step 1, automate access to the workplace bottom up by making everything in it, desks, spaces and so on, bookable in advance. This includes automating social distancing and other COVID safety measures, as only then can we reassure our people that we're focusing on their health and safety as our top priority. Step 2, leverage utilization data to drive continuous improvement and inform design thinking approaches to optimizing the employee and specifically the workplace experience. Step 3, challenge entrenched dogma by combining data and storytelling to get buy-in for people-focused initiatives that will have a transformative impact. The former CEO of Intel, Andy Grove, he once said, bad companies are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive them. Great companies are improved by them. And the same could be borne in mind by all of us at an individual level as we strive to be resilient and bold in our response to the radical shifts happening around us. And as we strive to support our teams in building their resilience and adaptability. I'm sure everyone on this call would agree that going through COVID-19 has been a life-altering experience. It's given us a chance to question entrenched dogma, to rethink the workplace, to hit reset and shift gears. So I'd like to wish every one of you well on your mission to lay the foundations for an adaptive workplace this year. And with that, I'll hand you over to our CEO, John, who'll field your questions.
Thank you, Jane, for that wonderful presentation. And I'd like to welcome the over 1,500 attendees to today's webinars. We appreciate your time today. We'll take Q&A. If you want to enter questions into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, we'll be happy to address as many as we can. Well, first question, Jane, is around will people receive a recording?
Yes, absolutely. If you keep an eye on your inbox tomorrow, we'll be sending out a link to the video and a couple of other bits of content that you might be interested in. So for sure, that'll show up tomorrow.
Martin, the question around, do we think that after COVID, the office densities will be reduced?
Yes, I think as Jane was pointing out in the video, no one wants to go back to working in the office 5 days a week. You know, none of us miss the commute, I'm sure, every day. So, you know, the workplace is going to become a flexible environment. I would predict that organisations will be looking to downsize their real estate. So, you know, the ability for people to be able to plan their trips to the office and for facilities to be able to manage that, I think is going to become a thing of the future.
Yeah, great, thank you. Few questions around pricing. Do you charge by users, by resources, or how do we price? Maybe take that one as well, Martin.
Okay, yes, SmartWay 2, it's offered on an annual subscription basis. That subscription is calculated based on the number of meeting rooms or desks or car parking spaces or other resources that you wish to manage within the system. But you get unlimited users as standard.
Yeah, great. Thank you. The SmartWay 2 hosted service, and where is your support as we're a global company? Yes, we use Amazon, and we have 4 locations around the world in Australia, US, Ireland, and London. So, you know, companies can place the data where they would like it to go. And we also have support in Sydney, London, and the US. So kind of follow the sun support. No matter where you are and what business time zone, we can support you. What simple application do you use to redo floor plans? Mark, you want to take that one, please?
Well, generally, our clients give us the floor plans, but I would say that you know, I've seen some awful floor plans over the years. So if you have them in a CAD format, that gives us a great deal of flexibility to you know, switch layers on or off. But I've also come across clients that, you know, don't have floor plans, and, you know, when we've had to assist them in creating them, I've personally used a product called SmartDraw, which is you know, nice and easy to use, a cloud-based solution, and it's not too expensive, so win-win.
Yeah, great, thank you. Quite a few questions around how would we start off, you know, implementing, you know, SmartWay and for 500 desks, 1,000 desks, in multiple locations. Maybe Martin, you could just speak to how we roll out implementations.
Sure, certainly. Well, look, we've designed SmartWay 2 to be quick and easy to deploy remotely, but, you know, the technical part of it is just one part of the jigsaw. We'd normally start with an implementation workshop session, really, you know, just to get the key sponsors all up to speed with what the product can offer. And you can then decide what parts of the system are right for you, because, you know, something that's a good fit for one organization may culturally not be a good fit for the other. So we run interactive workshop sessions, you know, to tease out the overall requirement, and then we gather data. We'll go away, you know, we will lay out the floor plans, configure any attributes, etc., etc. We'll have a technical session with the IT people to integrate with the core infrastructure services such as Active Directory, single sign-on, and Outlook. But that's all very straightforward because we designed it to be so. And then, yeah, we firmly believe in making the product available to people with their data very early on, so we can get some feedback. And then it becomes an iterative process whilst we, you know, we tweak the configuration in various remote sessions. And then when everyone's happy, we assist in preparing the, you know, the the user documentation in the form of corporate communications or maybe short videos, just to give people, you know, the information they need in how to book a desk or meeting room post go live. But we can tailor it, you know. Some organizations have, you know, better skill sets than others internally. You know, some organizations have been able to produce better sort of videos than we would, because that's what they do for a living. So, you know, we can tailor that to whatever suits.
Yeah, great, thank you. A lot of questions around, I'll put it as kind of what, you know, what should we do? How do we get started, you know, from small to large? I mean, we've, as a company in the COVID environment, as Jane pointed out, you know, desk booking has been a hot commodity, and we've implemented over 100 new sites in the last 6 months, from sites as small as 25 employees up to 10,000 employees. So our, you know, our product scales. You know, most people are going into a building, or, you know, a building with, you know, one floor or multiple floors, and using the COVID rules to space people out. So they might have only, you know, 15 to 20 or 25% of their total population coming back, and they're using that data to try to figure out how they're going to set their offices up going forward as more employees come back. But as Martin suggested, you know, and Jane's, our survey has shown, you know, we don't think you're going to see full, you know, office capacity as it was before, and that's, you know, what most of our clients are saying to us and what we're seeing as we implement these systems. So I hope that addressed a few questions. You know, we can scale and we can start projects and pilots, you know, as little as, you know, 30 or 50, 100 desks to get going, as you, and then build it out into other offices. There was a few questions around Outlook integration. Martin, you want to take that one for me, please?
Okay, yes, Outlook integration, you can book meeting rooms, desks, or any resource through Outlook. But if I'm honest, it seems to be more widely used for meeting rooms, because organizations already have the culture of Outlook meeting invitations, and adding the, you know, the meeting room and any additional services such as catering, room layout, or AV as part of that is just a natural step. As far as technology goes, there's nothing that needs to be deployed to anyone's individual desktop. Basically, our integration is using Exchange Web Services. So there's an app in the Microsoft Marketplace that your Exchange administrator needs to download and install. Whether that's an on-premise Exchange or Office 365 makes no difference to us, or even a hybrid. So once that add-in is installed by the Exchange administrator against his account, it will immediately appear on all the users' Outlook's appointment windows, regardless of whether they're using Outlook for Windows, Outlook for Mac, or even Outlook Web Access. So very quick and easy to deploy. And once it's deployed, you'll be delighted to know it's maintenance free.
Yeah, great, thank you. A few questions around touchless technology, such as QR codes and check-in capabilities. Kind of maybe combine those, Martin.
Yeah, sure. Very topical at the moment. A lot of it depends on the, you know, the hardware you have available to you. We offer small 3.5-inch desk displays. They have a dual frequency card reader in there, so whether you're using, you know, NFC cards at 13.56 megahertz or the more traditional HID at 125 kilohertz, you can interact with those panels, and same for the meeting rooms, using your access control cards. But we also allow authentication via Bluetooth and NFC. So for example, if you're using an iPad, for example, outside a meeting room, you can bring your telephone into contact with the panel and it will authenticate you via Bluetooth. As John mentioned, QR codes again, it's another contactless route. But you know, fallback position for everything, and it's not touchless, is, you know, having to enter a username and password, or you know, or a reservation code of some kind. But lots of options, depends on the technology. And we do have some more technologically interesting ways of checking in coming along in the next couple of releases. And I won't say any more on that at the moment, John.
Yeah, super, thanks. Again, a lot of questions around, can we talk about a pilot project or a specific reference, where the system was implemented and the experiences and challenges in doing so. We've had a number of, I'll call them pilot projects, as I indicated earlier, go in and do a floor and work on the COVID rules, the social distancing rules. We see rules changing already in different regions of the world. So, our flexible rules engine allows you to modify those, and it doesn't require an engineer to do that work. So, people are trying to figure out, the touchless, most people are using the phone, their smartphone, and QR codes, or booking via the web at home, and they're implementing rules. We do a lot of capacity planning where, once you've reached 20%, then, no one else can book. And so people are testing those different things. We didn't touch on it maybe in this webinar, but we see a lot of overflow challenges, like there are two essential workers share an office, or they have seats next to each other. And so we've created overflow rules where, you're not able to book a desk because someone already booked one and blocks you out for the 6 feet or the 2-meter rule. And then, but we direct that person to another area that they can book a desk into. Also see that for meeting rooms, they're not being used for their normal purpose, but maybe a 10-person meeting room can be converted into 3 desks, so other essential workers can come in. So there's a lot of different testing of rules to fit the individual company's culture that we see going on in the pilots, and then they roll it out into a larger number of desks throughout the region or world. Anything you want to add to that, Martin?
Yeah, John, if I may just go back to the contactless checking question again, something that we have seen enormous take up of, during this pandemic is integration with access control. And, whereas previously most organizations would say that if you'd booked a desk and you'd turned up and gone through the access control, it was fair to assume that you would use that desk, so we could automatically check you in via our API integration. But since the pandemic's hit, what we've seen is a reversal of that, and organizations have been revoking everyone's access on the access control, and you only get granted access if you've made a booking through SmartWay 2. And we've even seen organizations where they've got access control on, several floors, they actually restrict people to the one floor where they have a desk booked, to prevent them moving around the office and, socializing with their friends and colleagues, as it were. So again, that is a very convenient way of checking in users, because they don't have to do anything in addition to presenting their card to go through the access control gates.
Great, thank you. Question around the SmartWay to integrate with Microsoft Teams. The answer is yes. And in our next release, we'll also have integration with Zoom. Does the product integrate with temperature checking stations for compliance? We haven't done that to date, but we have an open API that allows you to integrate, with almost anything, as long as there's a decent API on the other side that we can connect to. Those things, just like we, connect to sensors and other third-party products through our API, that's something that could be done.
Yeah, in that environment, John, you would have to have the thermal sensor integrated with the access control, so it checks your temperature as you swipe the card. Otherwise, it wouldn't necessarily know who you were unless you were, going down the realms of facial recognition, which wouldn't be popular in a lot of organisations, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Can information be passed to the cleaning operatives so they can sanitize before or after someone has used an office or a desk. Martin, you want to address that one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen clients enforcing extended cleanup times. If you don't have the luxury of, an on-site daily cleaner, if someone's used the desk for 2 hours and they check out, we can make the desk unavailable for the rest of the day. Obviously, if you do have that on-site cleaner, we can send an alert to instruct the cleaner to go and do the necessary, as it were, and give them the ability to return that desk to service. And depending on, again, what technology you want to use, if you have one of our desk panels on the desk, the cleaner can just swipe their card and it will instantly return that desk to service. Equally, if they were using the mobile app, they could scan the QR code to return that desk to service. But mainly we're seeing people using interactive reports, and whether that's a list view or a graphical floor plan view, where they can just click on the appropriate desk once they've suitably sanitized it. You've got both options available. So again, it's a matter of finding out what's right for your particular cleaning staff and what technology is available.
Super, thank you. I think you touched on this a little bit, but does your system tie into access control systems? For example, if an employee answers yes to any of the COVID questions, their access badge will not work that day. That's something that we're building out over the next few months, so we will have that capability. It will kind of depend on which access control system you're using. But again, through our API, we're doing that work for a client today. And so that's definitely something that's coming in the near term. I think I understand this question. It says, could you make a reservation of a meeting room based upon the exact number of people that will come to the campus? So there should be a way to say, if you come on site or work from home in your solution, how do you do this?
Absolutely, yes. SmartWay 2 differentiates between in-person attendees and remote attendees, which is something Outlook doesn't currently support. But even using our Outlook add-in, we can give you that option by replicating the meeting attendees actually on the SmartWay 2 reservation form, rather than relying on the attendees in the Outlook invitation. But it's quite common for people to put restrictions around, size of meeting room that you can book based on the number of physical attendees. Also very important for things like catering orders. And if you're integrating with a visitor management system, or you have a simple visitor list on the front desk, you obviously don't want that to be cluttered up with people that will be attending remotely. So it's a very important, aspect of SmartWay 2.
Yep, thank you. Maybe this is a follow-up to one of the previous questions. Describe your rules engine in a bit more detail.
Okay. Well, look, the rules engine is a combination of multiple features, really, if we think about it. We have the ability to create custom fields and forms and control the circumstances under which they appear. We have definable graphical layers. We have definable interactive notifications, both via email and in-app. And when we combine all of those components together in a rule, and by a rule I don't mean to just prevent you from doing something, but you can combine many of those features together to enhance the user workflow and the experience of the system. So an awful lot of flexibility there. The rules itself can be obviously triggered on a save event, but we also have an inline event. So that means the moment you make a selection that would ultimately prevent you from, completing the booking, you are alerted to it. But we can also trigger rules on other events, such as delete. You might want to prevent someone from cancelling a meeting room booking at short notice if they've ordered, fine catering. And you may also want to validate something on check-in. And prior to the pandemic, we used to quite often, when someone checked in for a desk, we would look to see how many hours that day they were actually spending in meeting rooms and decide whether or not to let them have the desk. So it's, you know, it's not just a rules engine. There's many components to it, and when you combine them, it does provide an awful lot of flexibility and power.
Thank you. Maybe one final question here. Does your system use geolocation?
Okay, our mobile app is location aware. So when you check in, for example, we can check that you are actually at the building to, you know, to stop people cheating. We don't actually store any of that information. It's just a validation, you know, at time of action, as it were. So on that basis, yes, absolutely no reason why you couldn't apply that to more granular locations with the use of beacon technology. Yeah, as I say, the app is location aware.
And then maybe one more here. Does the system also support self-service visitor sign in a notification to staff member that they are there to see them?
Okay, we don't have, you know, our visitor management functionality within SmartWay 2 is fairly basic. We can provide an interactive report that provides a list of visitors by reception and who they're visiting, and, you know, a member of staff, the receptionist, can timestamp them in, issue them a badge, timestamp them out. As part of that process, yes, we could send a notification to the meeting host, because we know who they are, obviously, to alert them that their visitor has arrived. But I think by the nature of the question, I think we're referring to a more specific visitor management application, and we resell the Proxy Click product, which does have, you know, self-service kiosks for people to be able to turn up. They can be pre-registered and scan a QR code. It can take their photograph. So, you know, a very configurable visitor experience, you know, through an app, not just a basic list. So hopefully that gives you some pointers.
Yep, thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending today. We've had a great audience and we love the questions. And if we didn't address everyone's questions, you know, please feel free to reach out and contact us for a presentation or demonstration and get your additional questions answered from our team. Thank you, Jane, for your wonderful presentation, and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, everyone.